just to make sure I'm safe here. Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, we're good. Pull this back up.
Everything recorded?
Yes, sir. All right. Hello, everybody. Hey. Welcome to the Amelia Island Museum of History's Third on Third program for January. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces. This is wonderful. We're happy to have all of you. Just a couple of pieces of housekeeping before we begin. If you have a cell phone with you, I'm going to need you guys to make sure that it's on silent. I'm guilty of this too, but we want to make sure that we're quiet while Mike is speaking tonight, okay? The other pieces of housekeeping that I've got to bug you with is we're actually having a gala on February 14th in partnership with the White House and High Career Gym, which is associated with Downton Abbey, if you have any fans of that. This gala is benefiting the Amelia Island Museum of History and is supposed to be helping raise money for staff benefits packages, so things like health insurance. But more importantly, it's a good time to come see us. Dee has already picked out what I'm going to wear, so if you want to see, you do have to come and be there. This is going to be Valentine's Day, so there's more information on the website, so you can look into that, see if you want to come, see if you just want to donate. Either way, we'll be happy that you took a chance on us, okay? Now, the other two things that I have to tell you is February, our Wednesday brown bag lunch is on February 4th. That's going to be Your Hands Breathe Life with Jim Ballenbacher. This is a CPR workshop. This is going to be from noon to 1 p.m. This is free. It's a great workshop to attend. We attend it every year. It's a good skill to have. So I think it's worth the time if you have the time. Our Third on Third for February is going to be Listening for Whales to Rescue with Nick Williams on Friday, February 20th at 6 p.m. This is going to be the same format as this one. If you aren't a member, you ask that you donate $5, but nothing crazy. This ties into our current temporary exhibit, which is the right whales of Amelia Island. Now, for the more important things, our speaker tonight is Mike Kegler. Mike Kegler is a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and a former Army Air Cavalry pilot who served during Desert Storm. He is Grand Lodge historian for the most worshipful Union Grand Lodge of Florida, Prince Hall affiliated, worshipful master of Silver Square Lodge number 703 in Yulee, and owner of the Golden Gullah Geechee, LLC. His family has lived on Amelia Island since the 1850s. So if you could do me a solid and give him a round of applause.
Former Councilman Chip Ross, who sat in one of my presentations and gave me a critique, said it's extremely interesting, but it was way too long. So, as a process improvement, I told this is my minister presentation. It's going to be short but interesting. All right. She went over most of this. I'm originally from New York City. I'm a member of the Trey family. Some of my family members are here. I'm a member of the Roberts family, Davis family, Delaney families. We talk about West Point. Let's see. I'm also a Prince Hall Mason, 32nd degree, member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I'm a past master now. We had elections in the interim when I sent this thing. So I'm out to sea. I'm no longer the leader of the lodge. And I'm one of two most worshipful Union Grand Lodge historians. The other one is Jerry Urso, who I'll talk about. We have any Freemasons in here? Any brothers? Nobody want to shoot me the sign or nothing?
But descendants.
Okay, well, just so everybody's on the same sheet of music, what is Freemasonry? A lot of people don't really understand what it is. In short, it's a system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. We as Freemasons, we take a lot of pleasure in hiding the obvious in plain sight. So we communicate with each other through a lot of fraternal games, but we have signs and symbols and we hide them in plain sight. But if you don't know what they mean, you don't understand how we're communicating. It's focused on making good men better and removing barriers to brotherhood. One of the rules in our lodges is that we don't discuss two things in our lodge meetings: politics and religion. Why? Because they're very divisive. Those two topics are very divisive. It's the world's oldest fraternity. It's born out of the stonemasons' labor unions that were building the cathedrals and other religious edifices in the Middle Ages of Europe. They lived in a lodge when they were working. They lived when they were building those cathedrals. They lived in a place called a lodge. So that's why our Masonic residences are called lodges. Freemasonry grew during the age of the European Enlightenment. They believed in free thinking, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and democratic principles. And that's why they led a lot of these revolutions, like the American Freemasons, like Lincoln, Washington, and Franklin, and so forth. They were one-third the signers of the Declaration of Independence was Freemasons. And the same thing happened in France. A lot of Freemasons led that revolution there as well in 1789. We don't necessarily know when Freemasonry actually started. That's kind of fuzzy. But one of the oldest documents in Freemasonry is called the Regis document. It's about 1390. Yeah. That's that time frame. So that's when we kind of know the lodges got together at some point. It's not a secret organization. It's just an organization with secrets. Like our government. And we study a lot of esoteric knowledge. That's kind of like arcade knowledge, old world, old school knowledge. And we try to tie all those things together because there's a lot of commonalities in ancient knowledge. Now, what exactly is Prince Hall Freemasonry? Well, American lodges did not allow black men to join their lodges, right? And the reason for that is they did not want black men to know the secrets. What are those secrets? Well, I can tell you. British military lodges, before the Revolutionary War, they were hoping to gain loyalist support from the black folks in Boston, right? So they allowed their Prince Hall and 14 other black men to join their lodge on March 6, 1775. So a lot of these lodges are, a lot of these military organizations have lodges organic to their organization. That happened here when the United States colored troops were here on Fernandina. Their lodges came with them. And that's why Prince Hall Masonry got started. The Grand Lodge of England issued Prince Hall Lodge a charter to operate on September 20, 1784. So we actually got our blessing to operate from the king, the royalty of England, who ran the Masonic organization there. And we got that charter in 1784. Prince Hall is the oldest continuously operating black organization in the United States. Doesn't get a whole lot of recognition or a whole lot of acclaim because
Secret.
exactly. we do a lot of stuff on the down. But many black organizations were founded by Prince Hall Masons. Example, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, all Prince Hall Masons. The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The Divine Nine Fraternities, that the AKAs, and that Kamala Harris was a member of, or me at Omega Psi Phi, Alpha Phi Alpha, which is what Martin Luther King was a member of. And also the Congressional Black Caucus and Sigma Pi Phi. Anybody know what Sigma Pi Phi is? Any out of curiosity?
The bull.
It's the Boule.
Whatever.
It's the Boule. It's the fraternity of extremely wealthy black folks. A lot of people didn't know that. If you notice, LeBron James has a big sigma on his chest. If you ever notice, that's the symbol for it. He's a member of that. So these are the wealthy black folks. Freemasonry is Prince Hall Freemasonry is the West Point of black leadership. And I can say that because I was a member of both organizations. More American black leaders were members of Prince Hall than any other single organization in the United States. Here are some members. Anybody recognize that guy? It's Nelson Mandela, right? Booker T. Washington, he played a role here on the Fernandina. I'll talk about that. Thurgood Marshall. Jack Johnson, former championship boxer. Richard Pryor, that's surprising. Somebody, Richard Pryor. As crazy as he was? Okay. So let's talk about some of the local Freemasons in the area. First, I'm going to talk about the Delaney family. The Delaney family, anybody know any Delaneys in Fernandina? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, this family is a family of overachievers. Okay, and they are also kind of like the first family of Prince Hall Masonry in the state of Florida. This is one of the Thomas Sterling Delaney, the father, and his two sons, Ray and Henry Beard. They are all members of Island City Lodge here in Fernandina after Civil War #3. According to Jerry Urso, who's the other Grand Lodge historian, Thomas Sterling Delaney is one of the oldest known Freemasons, one of them, in the state of Florida, the Delaney family. He and his son Ray are listed in this book, Florida's Black Public Officials. Thomas Sterling Delaney was Nassau County's first black voter registrar. So even back then, they knew how important it was for minorities and blacks to participate in the voting process. Because we know right now, we have people who are trying to dilute our vote by gerrymandering, redistricting. It's a big issue right now, right? So it's something that was an issue back then, it's an issue now. And so if you think your vote does not count, why are people trying so hard to take it away from them? We need to think about that. We need to think about that. Ray Delaney was one of Fernandina's first black city councilmen right down the street. And he held a deed to Macedonia AME Church. So he was my family church, that's my family church. He held that deed. Ray Delaney, his brother, this is pretty interesting. He was the first black, one of the first black Episcopal bishops in the country. Right? Now, again, this is a family of overachievers. His son, Hubert Thomas Delaney, this guy right here, would become New York's first black judge. And he was also Martin Luther King's lawyer. Right? So that's him. His grandson is currently, Hubert Delaney, is currently in Congress in Connecticut, residing over the 144th district. So it's a family of over, all of them are still Prince Hall Masons, right? And if you back in the 90s, there was a play called Having Our Say about these two curmudgeons, black women who were old and cantankerous, but they had this huge history of accomplishment. One of them, those are his daughters, Henry Beard Delaney's daughters. One of them was the first black female dentist. We used to have our office on 125th Street in Harlem. My family used to patronize. They also had a brother that ran a huge mortuary in Harlem. A lot of these people moved from Amelia Island and wound up in Harlem. So we all kind of knew each other in Harlem. This is Reverend John R. Scott. He was born a slave in Virginia. In 1814, he was a city councilman for Duval County. Again, he's listed in that book. He's listed on the cornerstone of this church. This church is Macedonia AME on 9th Street and 9th and Beach. Right? If you notice, this church was designed as a Masonic lodge. If you ever go in that church, you'll see the similarities between a Masonic lodge and this church. And it's also patterned after this. This is the ancient Kemetic temple of Karnak. So if you notice, there's a lot of similarities in the architecture. Right? A lot of similarities in the architecture. Well, John R. Scott was the pastor of St. Paul AME Church in Jacksonville, and then later he came to pastor Macedonia AME here in Fernandina. He's listed on the cornerstone of Macedonia. The cornerstone, if you go past the church, is right down here in the corner, right? He's listed as the presiding pastor when that cornerstone was laid by Island City Lodge #3, which was the lodge that Thomas Sterling and his sons were in, and Harmony Lodge #1 on October 27th, 1872. It is one of the oldest known Prince Hall cornerstones in the state of Florida. So there's a lot of legacy and history there. And, oh, by the way, after doing all that, he was also the Grand Master, the second Grand Master of the Prince Hall Lodge. So this guy had a lot of hats. A lot of hats. And this is the building. It's 410 Broad Street down in Jacksonville. Okay? If you ever drive past it. It's called one of the most beautiful buildings owned by African Americans in one of our crisis magazines, NAACP magazines. Abraham Lincoln Lewis. This is a guy a lot of us should be familiar with. He was born in 1865 and died in 1947. Very influential black businessman. He's one of the founders of the Afro-American Insurance Company. And Florida, he's one of Florida's first black millionaires. And it's interesting because he was a Grand Lodge officer. He ran the insurance program for the Masons. And in 1898, a guy who worked for Prudential, a guy named Frederick Ludwig Hoffman, basically put out a document that said, hey, told the insurance industry that blacks were a very poor investment. Well, that opened the door for a lot of black entrepreneurs to step in and fill that gap, particularly ones that were already dealing with insurance. So here you have him form the Afro-American Life Insurance Company. In Atlanta, you had Alonzo Herdman form the Atlanta Mutual. And in North Carolina, you had a gentleman by the name of John Merritt for the North Carolina Mutual. These were black-owned insurance firms that made black entrepreneurs millions by taking care of that niche. He purchased American Beach in 1935, one of the few beaches in the area that allowed blacks to enjoy the coastline and the beaches. All these areas, the islands, pretty much all segregated except that one area. He was married to Mary Kingsley Samus, the great-granddaughter of Anna and Zephaniah Kingsley of the Kingsley Plantation. And he is the great-grandfather to the beach lady, Maveen Besh, and her sister, Dr. Janetta Cole. Dr. Janetta Cole her and her husband just recently moved back to American Beach. So she's living there now. She was the president of Sterling College. She was the president of Bennett College. She was the head of the Smithsonian African Art Institute. This woman, she wore many hats, and if you ever had the opportunity to see her speak, please do so, because she's very regal. She's extremely regal. So she looks regal in that picture, but when you see her, she's like, oh my goodness. Reverend George Edward Prince. This was I found extremely interesting because I didn't know about him. But the reason that picture of Lowe's is there is he owned all that property back in that area. He came from Greeley, South Carolina. He was pastor of the Third Mount Zion Baptist Church. That church still exists. It's right off A1A across the street from Lowe's. He built and rented homes on his property. State Road 200 runs through his property. Okay. So much of the area he owned, it was called Princeville. It's now called O'Neill. So the little town of O'Neill, when you pass, when you just before you hit that car wash coming out of, off the Amelia Island Bridge, that area, O'Neill Scott, he owned all that stuff. That was his stuff. His daughter-in-law is a woman named Daisy Prince. Not only was he a Prince Hall Mason, but she was a female version, the Order of Eastern Stars. And this is her memorabilia, came from her family. When I was worshipful master, my junior ward at the time was their descendant. So Prince Hall Masonry is also very generational. A lot of generations go one from the other. And she was the licensed midwife in the area. And in the 50 years that she was working, she delivered over 300 babies. So that's Daisy Prince right there. John Staves, he was born in 1854 in Virginia, died in 1937. He owned a home and a grocery store in the corner of 9th and B Street, where the B Street Grill is. That's where his place was. He worked for the railroad. He was a Fernandina tax assessor, again listed in Campbell Brown's book. He served as Justice of the Peace from 1888 to 1901. He was the past master of Island City Lodge number 3 here when it was here in Fernandina. And he's the last African American elected to office in Fernandina until the Civil Rights era. Solly Mitchell. Solly Mitchell, I had the blessing of knowing Solly Mitchell personally. Solly Mitchell was a civil rights activist who worked with A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph in 1935 got the first black union recognized. It was the Union of Pullman Porters. Pullman Porters. That was 1935, and then Woodrow Wilson they at one time called him the most dangerous Negro in America. He's a Prince Hall Mason. Because he was basically making all these changes happen. He's the reason why Harry Truman integrated the military, because he threatened to have a march on Washington. Anyway, Solly was one of his contemporaries. There's the author. Anybody know who Marsha Jean Phelps is? Okay, so Marsha wrote this autobiography for his 100th birthday. It's not you can't buy it. You gotta basically kiss the ring to get it from Marsha. But she wrote this book, and then I happened to be at the time when this came out. I happened to be the senior warden in his lodge, Solly Mitchell Lodge 377. And so as one of the lodge officers, when they were official Masonic events, one of us had to escort him. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because he sat in my car and told me 100 years of stories. Right? And that's when I found out, and I'll get to this in a second, but that's when I found out that he and A. Philip Randolph pushing the railroads to hire blacks in jobs other than porters. My dad and anybody know who Johnny Robinson is, the band director? He's also a Prince Hall Mason. Well, his father-in-law and my dad are cousins. And after they pushed the railroads to hire blacks, they decided, okay, fine, Pennsylvania Railroad said, we'll hire blacks, but they got to be veterans. And my dad had just gotten out of the Air Force, and Johnny Robinson's father-in-law had gotten out of the Army. And they wound up getting these great jobs with the railroad and working with them almost 40 years. So part of that was through Solly's efforts. Solly's father-in-law was also a deacon at my family church in Macedonia. I got married at the church. So we had that family time. I learned all this by driving back and forth to his events. So Solly was also a high-ranking, he was Sovereign Grand Inspector General. That's a very high-ranking position in Masonry. If you ever heard of Albert Pike, he had that similar position. Albert Pike was a white Mason and a Confederate general, and very well known during the Civil War. Solly was present when Nelson Mandela became a Mason in Malta. And he always tells that story. He died at 103 years old in 2022. He was, at the time, Jacksonville's oldest veteran. Okay, Elmo Myers. Elmo Myers was born in 1931 and died in 1987, relatively young. He was the founder of the Nassau County Development Corporation. He was a registered lobbyist with the Florida AFL-CIO, so he did a lot with unions, because union membership also provided protections for minorities and made sure that people were all treated fairly. So he was very actively involved in that. Civil rights leader. He's married to Annette Myers. She has a house on American Beach. He was a 33rd degree Prince Hall Mason and a Grand Lodge officer in the Lodge of Georgia across the river. Greater Trinity United Methodist Church, Fellowship Hall in St. Mary's. is named after him. He also has a Scottish Rite consistory in Camden, Georgia, named after him. Consistory is essentially a university for Masons. If you really want to get deep into Masons, you go to consistory and get your 32nd and 33rd degrees. And there's a room in Peck High School, Peck High Community Center named in his honor. So you'll see that picture when you walk in that building. Darian K. Bolden, now I'm talking to some people that are still alive. Darian K. Bolden is the pastor of First Missionary Baptist Church in Fernandina. He's been a pastor there since 1997, so he's coming up on his 30-year anniversary. This is, y'all recognize this church? This is in front of David's restaurant. So that's right down the street. That's his church. And this is the Amelia Delaney Fellowship Hall. So another Delaney with a name, building named after him. He is a community activist and a very dynamic speaker. His wife is also a high-ranking Masonic official in the Order of Eastern Stars. His wife, Renee. He was a past president of Moderators Auxiliary for Florida General Baptist, Urban League board member, 33rd degree Mason, and he is currently my district deputy grand master for 13th district. So we call him, if you look at him, we call him, our nickname for him is Debo. Debo. If you've seen the movie Friday, you know what that joke means. Wayne Peterson, some of y'all may have seen Wayne all over the place around here. He's very active in the community, handing out food. When we had COVID, his group, the Elm Street Club, Sportsman Club, handed out a lot of food. They still did that. They did that last Saturday. Right. They're still doing it. I mean, he's very active. He was the past master of Silver Square Lodge, number 703. In Yulee, I took the seat. I filled his seat when he vacated it. Past master or worshipful master means the leader of the lodge. So when you leave the seat, you basically say you leave the east, because the leadership stands in the east. They call you a past master. So, and that's supposed to be a highly exalted position. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't got any free stuff there. But Janice Ankrum, the Janice Ankrum Senior Life Center, this is her brother. Okay, Janice is also my cousin. That's the thing about me, you better check before you get married. You might be related to that person. You might be related to that person. Say he's a safety official at Rainier Advanced Materials here in Fernandina. How are we doing on time? All right. Now, I added this person. This is not a Prince Hall Mason, but according to the Amelia Island Genealogical Society, this is the oldest identifiable gravestone in Bosbello. This person was a Mason. He was born in 1847 and died in 1813. He was from Cape Francois in Haiti, right? So when I saw this, I'm like, wow, you got to understand something about the history of Florida. But he came as an army captain, like I said, Haitian military. He may have been part of General Biasu's Haitian entourage in 1796. Given the similarities in the name, I believe that's the case. Anybody know about the black general that commanded second in command here in Florida from 1796 to 1803? That's a great secret. But this guy was basically like the Black Cat. He was, when the Haitian Revolution kicked off in 1791, basically the King of Spain, who wanted the other part of the island of Hispaniola that was French, he supported the Haitian revolutionaries, right? Because he wanted that whole island. So he supported General Biasu, and General Biasu was kicking ass and taking names. This guy commanded 40,000 troops, and not all of it was guerrilla warfare. So if you can imagine trying to control just this room and get them all coordinated, this dude was commanding 40,000 troops. And what had happened was, so he was working for the King of Spain, and the King of Spain loved this guy, right? Loved this guy because he was winning. He was a winner. Well, in 1793, the French revolutionaries during the French Revolution cut King Louis XVI's head off, right? And then following year, 1794, the French revolutionaries, unlike the Americans, decided to free their slaves. So they freed all the slaves in their colonies. Well, this caused a decision point amongst the revolutionaries. Do we stay with Spain, who's been supporting us, or do we switch over to the French? Right? And the people who really made decisions were the mulatto class, the people who had been free. They wanted to join French society. So they were like, no, we're switching. So they chose a new leader. And that leader is the well-known Toussaint Louverture. That's who became the leader. So, now what do you do with this general who's got all the skill, and the King of Spain was like, okay, I'll just bring him here. And so they wound up bringing him here in January of 1796. He arrived in St. Augustine. He controls all the black troops here in Mantanas. And all of it. If you don't know, if you read Jay Lander's books, Black Society and Spanish Florida, you'll know how big a deal these black soldiers are, free black soldiers, because they could be free here in Florida, right? And so they're patrolling the area, and they actually play a huge role in the Patriot War of 1812, right? Okay, when George Clark had to fight against him, the guy who fought for the Union. Okay, so they bring this general here. This black general brings his entourage. He comes with his family and his supporters. A huge entourage of black soldiers, right? And I'm telling you, when I say this guy is happy, he's arrogant as hell. He's driving around with his uniform, driving around with his horse, and he is scaring the hell out of those white slave masters in his area. They're like, who is that on that horse? Right? But he's second in command. Right? And he would let you know. Well, this was causing a lot of issues, as you can guess. But in Spanish Florida, it was more accepted because the black troops were actually the more effective troops at keeping the British and keeping the Georgians from coming down here. Right? So I'm assuming that's how he wound up down. Okay, some of my good resources. Yeah, I'm almost done. I'm doing pretty good. Some of my good resources. Builders of Freedom. This is a book by the other Grand Lodge historian, Jerry Urso. This is Jerry right here. He's basically my mentor. Teaching me a lot of. He's the one that taught me about my Masonic history. When I joined the lodge, he was the worshipful master for Solly Mitchell, a past master for Solly Mitchell. And he said, do you know the Delaney's in front of me? And I'm like, yeah. I know the Delaney's. He said, oh, really? Do you know the Delaney's are the oldest family in Masonry? I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. So he taught me my family history, the Delaney's and all the things that they accomplished and all that kind of stuff. So he wrote this book about Builders of Freedom. I'm going to see if I can get this book sold in the museum. I wrote the foreword to this, by the way. I'm going to push that shamelessly. The other great book here is Florida's Black Public Officials. Now, why I found this one so fascinating was because all the people that Cantor Brown was writing about, that had taken all these positions in Jackson, Florida, if you lay this across a template of all the lodge officers in our Grand Lodge, they're the same people. They were the same people. That's why it's tripping me out. I'm like, wait a minute, this person, he sat in this seat. I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm like, well, nobody knows this. I didn't know it. My own family didn't know it. So that's why I'm making this known. And then, of course, Marsha Jean Phelps' book, Solly Mitchell's autobiographies. like I said, when I read his autobiography, I realized he lived in Harlem where we were. He lived right around the corner on Compton Avenue. That's why I started asking all these questions, and I found out we knew all the same people and all that. It's crazy. It's way less than 7 degrees of separation. So, what are your questions? I kept it short and sweet. Hopefully it was interesting. What questions do you have? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for your service.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you find a lot of other Masons in the military, given those leadership qualities?
Listen, when I was in the military, I was like everybody. I was reading the internet like everybody else. It's like, Mason, that's like the Illuminati. I mean, big devil worshippers and all that. Because that's what I really thought. You know, I'm like, when I got asked, I asked when one of my coworkers at Mayport asked Gerald, his name is Gerald Garber, somebody I really respect. He asked me if I would be interested in being a Mason. That's literally what I thought. Because I had no clue I had this huge family history here. Because I grew up in New York. Right? So, and again, Masons are secretive. So even my grandfather was a Mason. I didn't find out he was a Mason until I became a Mason. Then my aunt, Hildebrand, so Gloria Hildebrand, she comes to me and says, oh yeah, your grandfather was a Mason. Here's this Bible, here's this. Nobody tells you this stuff. So in answer to your question, once I became initiated in the process, because I finally said, okay, I trust Gerald. I know he ain't a devil worshiper. So I went through the process best thing I did because I was already studying this. I was naturally interested in this kind of information anyway. And most Masons that are in the Grand Lodge, in the lodge, will tell you, well, I have this huge generational relationship to the lodge. I mean, their grandfather and their great-grandfather, and all of a sudden, but they don't know that until they're in there, and then you can actually see the records. There's minutes from when they had meetings and all this kind of stuff. Then you get access to all this information, and you get access to the secrets, right? So that's when it becomes important. So you have, before when I was in the military, I wasn't paying attention to it. I knew it existed. But until I actually moved here and became initiated as a Mason, I had no clue.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, obviously, people in the Masons are very integrated in their community. Right? They're very active, but they don't, as an organization, participate. It's
No, you can't, because you lose your tax-free status if you do that. They're a non-profit organization.
But they could help other nonprofits.
Right. What they do so that they don't lose their non-profit. You cannot, you can support general voting and all that kind of stuff. You can't go and endorse a candidate and all that. You can't do that because they're non-profit and they're supposed to be open and all this kind of stuff. So to avoid that now, they support other organizations. That's why they form like the NAACP. All those that actively do those things. But under the auspices of Mason, can't do that. You can't, like I said, two things we don't discuss as Masons, right? Religion and politics. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's amazing to me after I did move to Fernandina how integrated everything in black politics and power. Somehow Fernandina is in there.
Yes, ma'am.
Everywhere.
It was amazing to me. Again, I spent my summers down here as a kid, and of course, I wasn't paying attention to this, but when I finally moved here, and you got to understand, Fernandina is unique in and of itself because the island, when this particular island during the Civil War, Robert E. Lee pulled Confederate troops off the island in February of 1862. And as part of Operation Anaconda, Union forces occupied this island. So Thomas Sterling Delaney, on October 3rd of 1863, he escaped with his wife, who had just been newly emancipated, but was fearful that his family and kids would be re-enslaved by the Confederates. So they crossed the Confederate blockade of the St. Mary's River and came to Fernandina and signed in at Fort Clinch. So that's how we know a lot of what Thomas Sterling, he had 11 kids. He had bought 9 of them, we don't know what happened to the other 2. But, I mean, they stayed over there. He was like I said, he was a free alien minister, and his wife was newly emancipated. So he, again, had that concern, but he knew here because of the General Butler in Virginia came up with a law that said if Africans, if slaves came as property, if slaves came to Union forces, they were not supposed to return them because they could be used in the effort against them, like on building a railroad and that kind of thing. So they made up a law that said the Union forces would keep them. And based off that, a lot of black folks escaped to Fernandina. Also, you had the 54th Massachusetts from the movie Glory. Remember that? The sergeant major for that unit was Frederick Douglass's son. They came, just like the British had Masonic units, organizations, lodges within their units, these black troops that were stationed here in Fernandina had their lodges, and in Jacksonville had their lodges. And when they fought at the Battle of Lusty, which was against Joseph Finnegan, whose house used to be at that base of the water tower over there, he was David Yulee's business partner, right? So they fought at the Battle of Lusty, and 54th Massachusetts, with black soldiers, the Confederacy had a black flag policy. Anybody know what that is? If you are a soldier, and you're a black soldier, you do not get quarters. You do not get any salvation. When you have a white flag, that's surrender, right? Black flag means if we catch you, we kill you. And that's exactly what happened at the Battle of Lusty. When the Confederates won, when General Finnegan won that war, the reason they weren't able to pursue the Union forces, and then the Union forces were able to escape, was because they had stopped to kill the black Union troops on the battlefield at the Battle of Lusty, right? And in that interim, the 54th Massachusetts got a lot of wounded troops on the train in Baldwin to get out and come to Jacksonville. Well, the train broke down. And the 54th Massachusetts literally put ropes on the train and pulled it back to Jacksonville to keep those people from being killed. So, but those folks after the Civil War, a lot of them stayed here, and quiet as it's kept, Mason, the Prince Hall Masons sent a lot of resources down there. Because what's amazing about Fernandina, going back to what you said, what's amazing about Fernandina is 5 years after the war, 10 years, there's all these schools going up, churches going up, and these people had nothing. They went from, they didn't get the 40 acres and the mule, right? That was literally, General Tecumseh Sherman's special order number 15 is the 40 acre and the mule rule. Right? We were supposed to get 40 acres and access to an army mule, and we were supposed to have what's now known as the Gullah Geechee corridor. Well, what happened was, Abraham Lincoln gets killed in April, right? His replacement is a Southerner slaveholder, Andrew Johnson. He reverses everything that Abraham Lincoln put in place, including that 40 acres and the mule rule. And so as Confederates start coming back, he allows them to get the property back. And so blacks never got the reparations they were supposed to get, according to that rule. And that's one of the reasons why Andrew Johnson got impeached, and he was saved from conviction by one vote. So your vote does count.
I wanted to say thank you so much for doing all the research that you do. I also wanted to just add one thing. Though Dr. Jeanette Cole came back to this area, she also brought her brother. There was a brother, John Besh. So we want to always recognize him as well, because he don't stay much. He was gone a long time, but he is here too, so we have those descendants still living on this island.
Right. He had the John Best trio and had one in his album.
Yes, yes, he's a famous jazz musician.
Do you think she'd ever speak here?
Oh, she
spoke over.
in this home. Yeah, and she speaks all over. She's 89 now,
Yeah.
about to turn 90,
Right.
and she's still very active.
Yes.
She's an amazing person.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you so
One more question. Gentleman in the back of that side.
Being late, a long day, short drive, I had to weigh down the brakes, but I had to fight hard to get here. You know what I mean? Since we can't really catch it when our laws on board for about 6 square laws, I'm going to be you know, we've been trying to catch this man and do this for a long time. And, you know, we thank God he came to us under the 10th precinct, but we fell in love with this man anyway. And without further ado, we would like to present you with your pastor, Thomas Sterling, and which we're going to consider with love and trying to
This is going to go next to my cadet saber.
alongside me, my Julie Warden, Demetrius Oates. We didn't mean to catch you like this.
Oh, he's in the sonic sequence. I can't show you all. Oh, no. You gotta take 50 lashes first.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you.
No, right?
What do you call it?